Welcome to today's webinar discussion, Laundry Leaders, a panel discussion on the future of commercial laundry. We are excited to have you all here today. Today's discussion will be centered around how technology, software, automation, and sustainability trends and practices are shaping the commercial laundry industry. I'm joined by our esteemed panelists who have extensive experience in the laundry industry. So let's go ahead into introductions, and I'll let Sarah kick us off and introduce herself.
Thank you, Brittany. Really appreciate that. I'm very excited to be here, and especially among such awesome colleagues today. So my name's Sarah Sinclair. I'm Chief Customer Officer for Linen Master and Infinite Laundry. Been in the industry for, we're approaching somewhere close to 10 years at this point, I think. But with Linen Master for the past 3, and recently we acquired Infinite Laundry. We're just really excited to put forward more efforts to bring great information and collaboration like this to you and to the industry, and just appreciate your attendance today. I'll pass it on to Jeff.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Linen Master, for setting this great webinar up. My name is Jeff Courey. I'm the president and CEO of George Courey, Inc. We're a 114-year-old institutional textile business. We're manufacturers, importers, distributors. We distribute all over North America, anything that's soft and washable in a hotel room, hospital room, nursing home, long-term care facility, etc. I'm happy to be here today. I think we're going to be focusing a little bit on sustainability and that kind of stuff, which is right up my alley. So excited to get started on this talk.
My name is Arnaud Henrard. I'm the president and CEO of Voltex USA. We're a manufacturer of industrial laundry equipment, and we really specialize on simple and reliable solutions. I've been in the industry for about 30 years now, 31 years, and love the industry and really happy to be here today. Thanks for having me.
My name is Tom Abbett. I'm with Positech RFID. I've been doing business development for the nation since 1999. Prior to that, I was just on the operator side from 1987. So I've been doing this for many years, and we've been delivering achievable, repeatable results with RFID since, again, the last 25 years. And it's really accelerated over the last 8 to 9 years. So I'm excited to be here, excited to be with my comrades and with the Linen Master today.
Awesome. Thank you so much for all those introductions. So let's get into our discussion today. I'd like to start with what's new and exciting in technology, automation, software, and sustainability. So what do laundry businesses need to know to stay ahead of the curve these days? Tom, do you want to kick us off there?
Sure, I'd love to. What's really new has been, from like 2000 to 2011 or 15 maybe, RFID was great for garments. It made sense. We saw a really big progression, 10 to 20% a year growth. But what really has changed has been the advent of RFID and linen. With modern software like Linen Master and others, have given laundry operators the opportunity to really change how they do business, to recognize what they're doing with their linen, and then in conjunction with the linen manufacturers, and even on the folder side, iron side, all these different data points now are really becoming a really good way to create big efficiencies. We see linen 10x times what was ever possible on garments. So that's been pretty exciting. I think you're going to hear from Jeff and Arnaud that they're seeing requests on the RFID on the linen side as well, from work in progress, from shipments, from the life of the linen, and then from Linen Master, you're going to see the capability of revenue being created where they never could create revenue before, from par level, par charges. Instead of it being a loss charge, it's an extra rental charge. So there's a lot of great ways to identify who's abusing linen and the different revenue streams that can be created. So we're really excited about all those things.
Yeah, I think that it's common for a lot of industries, right? Not just our industries. This introduction of new technology And it's all about data, right? So everything is about data and understanding your business from different perspectives. And I think that RFID just provides that as well. And, at the beginning, and Tom, you can corroborate this or not, I think one of the big hurdles was the cost of it, right? Everyone was worried about, how do I get these chips in the product? I can only put it on expensive kinds of linen. How do I even quantify charging my customers back for linen loss now that I know for a fact that there's, laundry hidden in your hospital somewhere? And so I think that there's many things that as it's evolved, it's gotten also more affordable. So I know we're now putting chips into product in Pakistan and China and around the world, which significantly decreases the burden on a laundry who wants to convert some of their inventory over to RFID tracked inventory. And that was a big kind of hurdle that we had to go over, which took time. It took time to understand the logistics of getting chips from Japan or the US into these different countries around the world, and the taxes involved with it, and the different barriers. So I think that it's out there in all different kinds of industries, and ours is not different. And it's a very old industry, ours, right? The laundry and textiles. But it's evolving. We're probably not right where Tesla is in the world, but we're almost there, right? We're all working towards that kind of innovation within the industry.
In terms of trends in general and tying into the RFID and just the trackability and availability of data, to your point too, Jeff, the connectivity of all of it, seeing it come full circle. So systems being able to integrate with one another, the ability to get a full picture of every process that you've implemented in your business. So whether it be the textiles you choose, the RFID chips, and how you run that through, what makes it come full circle and gives you the control over that data to make better business decisions on the day-to-day. So that's kind of where the software trend is headed, is the ability to have connectivity in all systems or equipment, machines, automation, and processes for people to really hone in on what's important on the day-to-day.
Yeah, and I think that also right now the buzzword is artificial intelligence. And I think before RFID was about tracking, and now it's going to be about data analysis. Now you can get that data and really analyze it and try to make better business decisions and improve customer experience with that data, and change how the linen goes through the plants with that information. So RFID is not just in terms of knowing what you have, but also how it travels through the plant. It's not just what you have, but where it is in also even outside of the plant.
And it's just something that, as an industry, everyone needs to adopt. I say this all the time about AI. You can't challenge the progress of AI. It's there, it exists, and everyone has access to it, right? Equal access to it. So the success or failure in the AI revolution is going to be who can use AI better than the next guy, right? And so that's where it's no different for the laundry industry, is how can we use this data, to your point, Arnaud, to actually make a difference in my business or in my client experience. And I think that that's not going away. It's just going to ramp up even more as we go forward.
Yeah, I think you're right. You're both right. I think absolutely the biggest issue has been, we've had the early adopters who saw through that it's not just about a loss charge or damage charge. A lot of people think that's what RFID is all about. It's not what it's all about. It's about deciding what the revenue stream can be. It's about knowing what customers are the abusers and having the opportunity literally to fire. I mean, we've got operators doing more revenue on less poundage because they remove clients they shouldn't have. And then to Arnaud's point, what's the other critical path is, once you decide you're going to be an RFID and enabled linen plant, that means that your ironers and folders have to be able. You have to have a way of making sure that all your linen has tags in it. I mean, Jeff Courey can send you linen, but then you've got to make sure that when you wash it, that you're going to have other linen popping in, and you've got to be able to have processes with your software vendor to decide what linen, just to make sure you maintain your linen with RFID. So there's a lot of different interesting things you have to learn to do.
We've certainly had more inquiries about RFID this year than we have in the history of our software being in business. And people are definitely, to your point, Tom, getting more specific in how they bill and track items, to your point, Arnaud, and then how it comes full circle. So we've had a lot more collaboration on that front. And it seems like it's a trend that I saw waver for a few years in my first bit of experience in the industry, but it's really sticking now, no doubt.
We had a lot of people, early adopters, that they didn't, they kind of were just looking, feeling their way through the dark. I mean, it was successful, but it became big successful when we were able to overlay treating customers based on how they treat you, as opposed to treating everyone the same. So, a lot of lending companies use like an automatic increase or a protection, or whatever you want to call it, insurance, so to speak, like on top of their par level. That's nothing but a price increase for your good customers. I mean, you're really addressing the 80-20 rule. I mean, 20% of the poundage in your plant is poundage and cost, or you break even on. And identifying that has been a big change. Other thing has been knowing that your linen provider, what the real run rate is of your linen, and knowing that, hey, this is good linen. It's lasting a long time. I've got proof of that this is a quality linen. So it really kind of helps companies like Courier's to maintain, hey, look, I'm going to do this for you. You become a value-added linen provider. It gives people the ability to decide to buy better linen because it dries better, it cleans better, it lasts longer, it looks better, right? It's not a race to the bottom.
If we could start talking about textiles in the cost of textiles in the sense of cost per use with some accuracy instead of the cost per piece, that would be game changing for our industry. And we're getting there. And I think at the very early stages of RFID, it was really only being implemented in expensive products, like think surgical gowns, even isolation gowns. Now, I mean, we're putting chips into underpads, into bath blankets, scrubs, like things like that. So it's come a long way. And I know I have some clients that are asking for RFID and everything, so it's yeah, I think it's going to continue to grow. Cost per use.
What are some other perhaps big challenges or common misconceptions facing the industry? And how can business owners overcome those challenges?
I think one is that maybe some of these systems and processes are really complex or too hard to manage or difficult to implement, maybe even that they're costly. But I think that, if a laundry really gives the time and just makes a small investment in researching or maybe speaking with different vendors across the business, they'll find that efficiency is really the key to unlocking cost savings in a laundry facility. And give software and more technology and more automation a chance. So I think there's a little bit of a resistance to moving forward with a lot of the trends, maybe something like RFID. I know we've spoken to that specifically. AI, I think, is of interest to people, but maybe still this weird gray area where they're not really sure how it plays into the future of their business. And just, programs and the connectivity and the potential of what's there. I think there's just this slight misconception that it might be too difficult to manage on the day-to-day, or it might not be as cost savings or create as many efficiencies as what processes exist. But the research is there. And so I think if we can network people better and give them a fresh understanding of how all of these different trends, products, and services really do improve a laundry, help them with throughput, PPOH, cost savings, then that would really help us grow as a whole.
I agree with Sarah. I think that when we talk about automation, most people think it's going to be very expensive to purchase, very difficult to implement, and expensive and difficult to keep in line. And the truth is, it's not. The new technology is less expensive, easier to understand, easier to work on, and easier to troubleshoot, whether we talk about RFID or just equipment in general. And those who don't adopt the new technology is going to be way behind the curve and won't be remaining competitive. When we talk about data, data is knowledge, and you have to know what's going on in your plant. And there's no better way than using today's technology to do that, especially when you see the new wave of what's to come, which is, again, AI. And AI is data-based, right? We used to be a brain-based operation, making decisions based on our thoughts. And it won't be long before it's going to be data-based operation, where we have AI looking at data to make the absolute best decision for the production and operation of the plant. So I think that there's no choice. You have to embrace new technology and move forward, otherwise you're going to stay behind.
I think that our industry over the years, I think, has been quite good at embracing technology, but in the sense of automation and equipment and stuff. So a lot of the laundry people that I know, they get very excited about a new piece of equipment, and it's faster, and it's something that you can see and touch and feel, right? And you can actually see, oh, the linen's flowing through faster, and I can time it. When you try to marry that with maybe some of the softer advancements in technology like AI and data analytics, et cetera, it becomes a little bit scarier, right? Now it's like, okay, well, I have enough trouble with my email. How am I going to figure out how to, use AI technology to, and so you're right, Sarah and Arnaud, it's about marrying the two and finding the right resources within the industry to make sure that everybody and everything is talking to each other, including linen and including chips and including automation and equipment. Like we're getting to a point now where, as an industry, we have a lot of external threats, right? Like the disposable industry, especially on the healthcare side, is a threat. And so as an industry as a whole, we need to be speaking to advance everything forward. And as we were discussing when we were preparing for this panel, it's things like this where like let's get, different people from different parts of the industry to come together and talk as a group. And so laundries, it suddenly becomes less scary to say, okay, let me look at this. I'm going to, look at some equipment, some software, see how that marries with textiles and chips, and let's put this project together. So we're going in that direction. But as a whole, I think our industry is quite open to change, actually. And then maybe that's a little bit counterintuitive of what someone from the outside looking in would think. But I think that if you look over the years, there's been a lot of innovation in the industry. And so we're ready for that, I think.
It's definitely an exciting time to be in this industry, because what's going to happen with AI overlaying RFID and then overlaying vendors that are willing to put technology in. I can see people knowing, having automated ordering coming, based off of what the linen says to tell them to do. I can see the linen saying how many machines they need, how many ironers they need next year. Hey, you need to buy a new ironer. Your folder's down, it's running, 80% as opposed to 85%. All this is going to come together really quick, I believe.
I think one step further too, most laundries today, I think, are processing on a push system, right? You're estimating what you think you're gonna need for your customers the next day. But RFID and AI together will allow to have a pull system where now you know exactly what the customers require for the next day, right? You're going to be able to pull things out of the customer, put them in your truck. It sends the information straight to the plant, and then AI is going to tell you what you should process in which order in order to maximize the efficiencies of the operation of your plant, your chemicals, your water usage, your labor, right? And that's going to make a tremendous change. And those who again don't embrace that technology are not going to be able to do that. A pull versus push is going to be a huge difference in efficiency, and that can be a differentiating factor in itself.
And you can apply the same push versus pull thinking all the way through the supply chain. I mean, it's not a secret that it's getting harder and harder to manufacture things around the world and import them, whether it's parts for equipment or whether it's textiles. And so the more info, the more you know your client, and you can more accurately predict, what's coming next, the smoother the entire supply chain will be, which makes us stronger as an industry.
I think you're going to see people knowing that, hey, 8 months, I'm going to know on May 15th how much product I need to order from, Courier. You're going to know. Yeah. You're not going to have to spend 2 or 3 weeks budgeting for 2025's purchases. You probably even have an automated purchasing program where it's going to automatically kick a PO out, saying, hey, this is what I need. And then it becomes very interesting, because if you're going after different type of clientele, you can take risk and chances on different type of linens and not have a lot, and then not be risky. You can buy new type of textiles and be confident that it'll work, or the job can get done. you can have a lot more SKUs than you used to, and not, because you used to be a real pain in the butt to have too many SKUs. Well, guess what? You can change SKUs and not worry about it if you have a good operating system, a good, vendor relation. It's really exciting times to be in the laundry business.
Great insights. So it sounds like we're a little ways out from, AI being used to its full extent in the laundry industry. But Arnaud, I'm curious, how are we currently seeing the use of automation in the industry, and what are some of the significant impacts that it's having currently?
So automation, a lot of people don't realize automation is right now something that is mostly done on a mechanical level, right? Or we're moving away from that and going to more software and again, in AI. But right now, automation, if you look in a laundry 100 years ago and compare it to today, you have more automation, but it's where you can predict how the linen is going to be presented to a machine, right? So it's input based. And you have to, for example, if I look at a sheet feeder, you have to put the corners in a clamp, or you have to provide a leading edge, but you have to always predict, the machine has to know what you're going to present. And that has been our challenge so far, is how do we go over that? How do we go past that? And I think that with AI and robots, if we really frankly talk about the robots, especially about deep learning technology, and there's something called machine perception, where they're actually able to recognize based on images, based on touch, based on audible, and even based on smell, what is where. And they can recognize how the linen is put together in a bundle, right? And right now, if you have automation, you have to present the linen the same way. It has to be the same shape. It has to be about the same style of linen. You can't expect a automated piece of equipment feeder to feed both a garment and a towel in the same machine. So it's very task oriented. So for example, right now you can spend $250,000 on a very, very large piece of equipment that's going to automatically feed towels into a towel folder. But it's going to be very hard for that machine to feed or recognize a scrub. But with the advances of the technology and AI and deep learning and machine perception, you could have a robot recognize what they are feeding. So imagine this, right? You go into a laundry and you buy a robot, you put it in front of a napkin feeder, and you have 5 napkin operators feeding napkins, and then you put your robot right next to it. It's going to look at those 5 operators feeding napkins, and it's going to learn exactly how to do this. Then it's slowly going to replace one operator, learn how to do it very slowly, and then it's going to increase its pace until it reaches the quality that you programmed it to reach. And then you bring 4 more robots. They don't have to learn anything because it's going to get all the information from the first robot. So now you got 5 robots able to feed at incredible speed, right? At apparently a really good cost, right? So those, and then the next thing is amazing is this is not task specific. You can take one of those robots and put them in front of another machine, and it's going to do the exact same thing, right? That's what's coming. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when, right? And I think, again, going back to the RFID is going to be key because the RFID is going to capture the information the robots need and the AI needs to be able to make those decisions of what's coming to make the best possible decisions. So we're going to go from very large, expensive equipment, fairly complicated, to robots replacing humans. And so that's inevitable to me.
How do you see that impacting labor, I guess, in the short term and maybe in the long term as well?
Yeah, so of course, replacing labor is before, I think automation was done to increase profits. That's why automation was used before. Now automation is really done to address the labor shortages and the labor uncertainties, right? You just don't know if you can find the people you need to be able to process what you need to process. So the labor is going to be mostly affected in wherever it's left in the laundry, which is going to be in your soil sorts, feeding ironers, or even feeding feeders, right? In folding, in packaging, and transporting the linen inside of the laundry, right? So I'm not sure there's going to happen on the transportation side, unloading and loading, because that's where you have the human aspect that actually really brings value. But everything else, I can think that it's going to, robots are going to replace pretty much everything. And that's not even talking about AI. AI is going to replace, we're talking about just software here. AI is going to be pretty much throughout the operation, from customer experience, how do I order what I need, to how much chemicals and in what order do I process my linens through the plant.
I think it's well said. I think that labor is something that we've been talking about as an industry for a long time. It's always an issue. And automation, like that's why I think you're right, Arnaud, that is why more and more laundries are open to looking at automation and making those investments, because of the threat of not having enough people to process linen. But it still has many barriers to it. And when I think of automation, I think of like speed, right? And so there's this trend in the U.S. towards microfiber products. Microfiber products dry fast, they last long, but still, like, I hear this all the time. Half the country doesn't want anything to do with microfiber, and the other half of the country loves microfiber. And the reason is that one half of the country hasn't figured out how to efficiently process that using the equipment that they have. It's either too fast or too slow, or it doesn't go through the ironer properly, et cetera. And so it's this conversation, I think, that needs to happen, where we're marrying technology with equipment and with textiles to make sure that it works, right? Because, like you said, it's inevitable. Robots are coming. So let's be practical about it and make sure that those robots understand that, because napkins come in many different sizes, shapes, and formats, right? And so, yes, it's great that it's going to learn over time, but the more standardization we have across the country, the easier that learning will become, I think, and just will constantly reduce that barrier of actually getting some of this automation accepted.
So speaking of drying faster, lasting longer, and switching gears a bit to you, Jeff, obviously sustainability is at the forefront of the industry. What are some sustainability practices that we're seeing gain traction in the industry?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Brittany. I think that so sustainability, it used to be a buzzword for many, many years. That was kind of marketing, gimmick, and that sort of thing. I think we've come a long way in terms of institutional textiles and what sustainability actually means. So I talk about this all the time. If we want to make a product that is truly impacting the health of our planet and our industry's CO2 emissions, you need to make a product that lasts longer, dries faster. And those are the two main elements. Like, there's a lot of fancy ways to make a sheet or a towel or a blanket using organic cotton and certified organic, et cetera, and all of that's great. But so I sit on the board of ARTA, the American Reusable Textile Association, and their approach to those sorts of things, they do life cycle assessments, LCAs, of different products to actually evaluate the impact of a process, not just of a product, on the environment. And they look at it basically from soup to nuts. And that's the way to look at it. When you're making a towel, a sheet, a blanket, et cetera, you make it one time. So great if you're using organic cotton to make it one time, but you will process that, wash it, dry it, iron it hundreds of times in the life of that same product. And so if we actually want to have an impact, and this is very much where the industry is going, we need to make things that last longer, dry faster, and more importantly these days is make them closer to where the product is going to be used. So not just to last longer and dry faster, but where is it being made as well. And that's why the idea of nearshoring or reshoring some production is growing in popularity. So moving away from the Far East and more towards Latin America, Mexico, et cetera, closer to the end user. And I think that's very much where the industry is going in terms of sustainability in textiles. And couple that with RFID technology and AI and everything we're talking about, you can actually quantify this now, and it becomes a big barrier to buying sustainable textiles. Used to be the cost, right? But the more and more we have access to data and information, the more we can make a business case around why it's worth the extra investment. And again, going back to ARDA, they did economic impact studies, not just LCAs, but economic impact studies to say, not only are reusable textiles better than disposable textiles for the environment, but also it's going to save you money at the end of the day, speaking to a healthcare system, which is a very important additional fact to consider.
Yeah, I agree with you, Jeff. We're highly supportive of reusable textiles, and we're actually building programs and have recently built programs that revolve around reusable textiles and actually infusing them with RFID chips. And that's how we track them, their life cycle, the longevity, the quality, wash cycles, where it's been its last location, especially in healthcare facilities, identifying where room, maybe there was an infection in a room, and being able to say that's the curtain that hung in that room, and knowing what to do with the protocol about that curtain. That level of data is really something that we're focusing on. And I couldn't agree more that just the care of the reusable textiles especially is an incredible cost savings opportunity.
And just to kind of extend this beyond the planet and more ESG in general, there's a lot of talk about ethical sourcing and that sort of thing. Like we saw the major issues that they're having in China with the cotton production using the vulnerable Uyghur population. It's a serious thing, and more where it's trending. And this is a little bit beyond sustainability, but more about ethical sourcing. It's transparency all through the supply chain, and I think that very much goes with what we're talking about in terms of data and sharing that data with customers. It involves also transparency in the supply chain. So you see it when you go shopping for clothing, et cetera. It's very popular at retail level. Here, scan this QR code and you can see where your cotton was grown. I think that same concept is very much infiltrating our industry, and it's making it better, to be quite honest. And so I think as an industry, we shouldn't be surprised if we see some healthcare systems or hospitality chains start asking, okay, well, where is your cotton from? And asking laundries, where is your cotton from? And in the past, it would be impossible for them to answer that question. You'd have to go through, maybe multiple different hats. But the more and more the trend towards transparency throughout the entire supply chain is happening, that's going to become a question that's kind of mainstream.
I agree. And I think back to Sarah's point on the the room, I can envision that with RFID in the linen, you can actually probably have a revenues where you could create a billing program in healthcare where you could bill for that room's use of the linen for that day. So you could actually have governmental agencies or insurance companies actually paying. If you turn that room 3 times, that's 3 new opportunities for revenue, or to bill for that use of that linen for that day, which has never been done before. You can monetize, same thing with the hotel operators. Or you could actually, because the linen had a tag in it, all of a sudden it's a lienable product. If you knew cereal pieces for, if you're a hotel with 80,000 pieces of linen, that becomes another way to a revenue stream or a value that is loanable. It creates all these different new data points of creating revenue or creating value for your company.
I think one thing that is missing is we always talk about educating the customers, and when we talk about the customers, we talk about our customers, the hotels and the hospitals. But I think what we really should do is educate the public who's actually using the items. The patient in the hospital bed. Do they care? I bet you they do, and they don't know. The person using a napkin, textile napkin versus paper napkin, what's the benefits? And I really think that we should do a better job at educating that public, the actual user of those items.
I think it's interesting. I think that, so for a patient in a hospital, lying in the bed, do they really care if, your sheet was sourced ethically, or if it was, you're focused on getting better, right? You're focused on feeling better. So that's why I think that for sure there will be some that do care about it, but in order for us to really have an impact, we need to be looking at it from, the economic perspective as well as the environmental perspective, because I don't think we're going to convert healthcare systems onto sustainably manufactured items based on, feelings and butterflies alone. It's going to be on the dollars and cents of it. And so I think that more and more using data and using AI even to create business cases around the benefits of buying reusable textiles, and not only reusable textiles, but good quality and long-lasting reusable textiles. It's going to come down to dollars and cents. So absolutely, there is a market there that appreciates where an item is made and where it's sourced from. More so on the hospitality side, I would say, than the healthcare side.
I agree, but I think there's an image though that is associated with those who use sustainable materials, right? So even if you go to the hospital, you may not care, but knowing that a hospital is using sustainable materials gives you a much better impression of that hospital than the one who doesn't. Same thing with restaurants or hotels.
Yeah, the blend of both of your opinions is excellent. We often hear from hospital systems that they have a goal to improve patient experiences, just like any hotel wants to have great guest experiences, right? And so they'll ask us, how can your programs, or how does the industry help us get there? And it is a mix of all of those things, right? So the cost, the impact, the efficiency, the longevity, the way the sheets feel in the hotel, no doubt, right? Like, I don't want to sleep on a piece of paper. Nobody does. And it's funny because I remember when my sister had my first niece, I thought first of all, they ran out of baby blankets. Hilarious.
Oh.
They didn't have enough in stock. And me being me, I'm thinking, goodness gracious, you need a software program to help manage your day-to-day. But when they finally had one the next day and brought it in, it was like the scratchiest material. And we'd already had the baby swaddled in something else. And I remember us saying, "Ooh, we don't want to use that. We wish they had better baby blankets." So it's just, how it comes full circle in our real lives. And you go, goodness, this is so interesting, and how impactful the industry is to our everyday experiences. But yeah, I think you both have great opinions or across the board on that.
I think I don't think you can talk about sustainability in institutional textiles without discussing this idea of a closed loop system. So looking at the end of life of whatever textile and seeing how can we give that a new life, right? And so I think that we have a long way to go there. There was a lot of talk about that during the pandemic, about isolation gowns. There were so many isolation gowns that were end of life, and there was a lot of companies trying to innovate very quickly, right? About how do we break down the microfiber, create pellets, and create new products, et cetera. I think that will continue to go forward. I think there's a very good opportunity there on the hospitality side to kind of take these, sheets, towels, whatever it is that may be stains or holes, and repurpose them at the end of life. And that's full circle on the sustainability thing is understanding how we can create a closed loop system. I know that there's some clients of mine that have told me great stories about how they're repurposing underpads at end of life, or things like that, where they're either donating them or creating new products out of them, et cetera. So a lot of people are doing great things there, but lots of room for more.
Great. Thank you all for this insightful discussion. So heading into our audience questions, one person asked, what textiles should have electronic tracking? What is new in the industry for labeling and tracking non-standard linen items? Tom, do you want to take a stab at that one?
I think, if you would have asked me 10 years ago what our first linen would be, I would have told you in large rounds. It was aprons. We had guys tagging aprons, and they weren't buying aprons for 1 or 2 years because of the amount of aprons they oversupplied on the street. And right now it used to be the rule of thumb, anything less than $2 we didn't do. But I have companies, because again, it's not about the loss charge. It's about not over delivering, oversupplying, and creating additional revenue opportunities. We got people tagging napkins. We got people taking a 50-cent tag and putting it on a 28-cent napkin, because they know they can get 8 more revenue shot. There's all kinds of different formulas that people run on the Linen Master or the Radical software to tell them what they can do. So there's no real limit. I think Jeff is putting tags on incontinent products. I've got people putting tags on microfiber mops for the same reason. Microfiber mop costs $1.50. or $1 or a microfiber wipe. So yeah, it really, you wouldn't start there. If you need to have the discipline, and you need to know how to do it. You need to coach yourself on how to use it, you know. But once you do that, I see people learning to do it on less and less expensive products.
I think the trend that we're seeing is if a laundry is starting a new SKU, they'll be more open to starting it with an RFID chip in it, because where it gets messy is if they have a pool of product already in their system and they're buying new and they're doing it the right way and implementing the chip at source and manufacturing, but it could take months or years in order to fully liquidate the product without chip and just have chip products to really take full advantage. So what we're seeing is a lot of laundries that are implementing a new SKU or a new product. They're more open to chipping them from the get-go.
I think RFID used to be based on the cost of replacement, right? High replacement cost means maybe an RFID is justified. But again, with the advancements of AI, I think that if someone is really interested in going into a full system, everything is going to have to be chipped. And I can see that happening. And also, to improve your efficiencies, like we talked about, faster operation, better operation, and again, chemical use, water usage, but also the customer experience. So it's not you against them. It's actually data. It's facts. What's missing, and I think customer experience is becoming increasingly important when you try to differentiate yourself in the market.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of, especially speaking to your point, Arnaud, in the data and the customer experience, a lot of personal garment tracking. We call it wearer tracking in our system. Everything's RFID chipped. So if I'm Dr. Sinclair and your laundry serves my healthcare facility, my scrubs in my size are delivered to me. And then at the laundry, you get the transparency of how many washes, what's the quality of her scrubs? Does she go through them faster than other people? What are those contributing factors? How do we make sure we have these in stock for Dr. Sinclair and all the other doctors at the facility that we're servicing? That level and that intricate data collection is something people are really starting to hone in on. And to the point of Tom and everyone else on the panel here, sky's kind of the limit on what you chip if you're tracking it to that extent. Sometimes you didn't know if a washcloth went in the trash can at your plant or at a restaurant or at a hotel. Now you know the last place it at least live if it's a chipped item. So you can start to go after linen loss and combat some of those questions and issues and just have so much more transparency into the day-to-day.
Our next question is asking how to overcome linen losses and how to achieve targeted PPOH.
Linen loss. I think there's a million different ways to approach it. There are a lot of tools the industry has to be able to combat it. I think a process is key. And then whatever you use to manage that process is probably your first layer of linen loss prevention. Just knowing who's in charge of what is where. A lot of the different things we've discussed here in this call, like RFID chips, can really help combat linen loss, like I was just speaking to. But something to track it, right? What's going where, who's the last person that had it, whether it be a software program you're leveraging, an inventory system. There's a ton of different components. The right sauce is probably, a mix for different laundries, depending on the type of laundry you're running. Healthcare is going to be a little bit different on how you might work with it in food and beverage or hospitality, for example. So I don't know if I have like a magic number, but I will tie it all back to a theme you've heard on this call, which is data is everything. So the more you know, the more you can leverage it, the more you can insert new processes and systems to prevent linen loss, understand how to bill for linen loss, how to have those communications with your customers. It's not a one size fits all. That's for sure. And same with PPOH. It depends on how you're running your business. I think the key is efficiency, right? Streamlining your processes. That's what it's all about. But I don't think there's a one size fits all answer there.
I think Dr. Sinclair is a very correct in saying that. And I just assumed you have your doctorate in linen management. No, thank you, Doc. I think that the best success stories I've heard about linen loss in the market always comes down to having good open dialogue and transparency with the client. And so you can have the best data and you could be in their face and saying, no, I know you have those blankets. I have the tracking. I have they're all chipped. If the client doesn't care and is not listening and not willing to listen, then that only gets you so far, right? So obviously easier said than done, but I think, Sarah, when you said, there's a different sauce for everybody, it's true, but the underlying ingredient is you have to have a good relationship and good communication and transparency with your client in order for anything to be effective.
So we are almost at the top of the hour, so I'm going to close us out with this last question. What are consumers going to be looking for when choosing a commercial launderer in 2024?
I think what they're going to look for is high quality linen. I think customers are becoming sophisticated because of the age wave, because the purchasing and procurement offices are younger, and they're used to apps on their phone, and they're used to data that's easy to see, and they want a lot of data. And I think they're going to look for RFID laundry companies that understand RFID, that have high quality linen, and have equipment that is running in optimal. That the ironers are correct. They're looking for high quality, and price and information. And I know for a fact that there's more than 2 or 3 dozen now laundries on the linen side that are really delivering that because of their embrace of technology. And it's only going to get more. I also think that you're going to see companies like Courier, linen, getting RFID tags on linen is going to be easier and easier and easier. I can even see people trading linen because Jeff is right. If you do a SKU, you have to do the whole SKU. Right. So some guy's going to say, well, look, I'm going to buy all new linen. And what I don't have tagged, I'm going to give to my buddy down the street who's not going to do RFID for a while.
Yeah.
I also see that ironer companies and folder companies will have technology that allows them to take advantage. The technology is going into ironers is going to get more and more RFID enabled, so that it's quick enough and fast enough to make the decision of does there a tag or not a tag. So that's what I see.
And I think, in terms of what customers are going to demand from the laundries, I have to follow up on what Jeff noted about transparency. So that level of conversation, understanding, really honing in on the specific customer needs. We're seeing a lot more of that here at Linen Master and even at Infinite Laundry in the marketing side. People really want us to understand, for the sake of their customers, how can we give more transparency across the board? Can their customers have access to data packets or progress or real-time information on the status of their items? What that looks like going forward, I think, is going to be wildly impactful to ongoing relationships, because quality in linen is very important, but I think quality of service, reliability, and dependability, we're seeing a lot of people focus on that, and our customers asking us to support them in those efforts.
I agree with Sarah. I think that at the end of the day, it's funny, we talked about AI and automation. That's really what's happening in the plant. But I think that the end users and the customers, really what they're looking for is a better customer experience overall. And transparency is a big part of that. I think that things have changed, since COVID-19, and it's been a lot about profits and cutting corners. And I think a lot of people are burned on that. They just want to have simplicity, reliability, transparency, even if it costs a premium. We just want things to work. And I think it's the laundry's job and the manufacturer's job and the supplier's job to do that as well on their side, to support the laundries who can then provide that to the end users. And we can do that using automation, by being more efficient and using AI to make better decisions. But at the end of the day, I think it's all coming down to a better customer experience.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, so I've been in this industry now 15 years, and I think 15 years ago, the client has gotten a lot smarter, right? And so we talked a lot about access to data, et cetera. They also have a lot of access to information. It's very easy to Google something. It's very easy to learn about something versus in the past, it was a little bit more difficult. So I think that going forward, that's just going to keep increasing. And I think that that's why as an industry, we have to be one step ahead and talk about transparency and talk about what's coming next, because our clients, the end users, are informing themselves more so than they ever have in history, right? So it's and that's a trend that's definitely not going away. And so I think that the more the industry starts to look at technology like automation and equipment or AI or RFID and analytics, less as a possible replacement of people and labor and intelligence, and more of a supplement to what we're doing, the more that it will advance together as an industry. And so I see that happening more and more as this hesitation to embrace the technology slowly dissipate, and then we'll see real advancements within the industry. And the most important thing, we talk about transparency. Dr. Sinclair mentioned it again, transparency. I think that as we go forward, the more people from different parts of the industry coming together, just like we are right now, and moving as one and moving forward as one is going to become more and more important. So just like if you're implementing an ERP in a company and your shipping system needs to speak to your CRM, that needs to speak to your whatever, your accounting system, we need to be doing that as well, or else the whole system won't work at the end of the day.
Great. Well, this has been a fantastic discussion. I'd like to thank our panelists again for joining us and sharing all of your great knowledge. I am actually going to pass it to Dr. Sinclair to
like how I accidentally got myself a new nickname. Yeah. Internally here at Linen Master, my nickname is actually Sauce. Whatever. Yeah. And then we go by variations of Sauce depending on the day and the circumstances.
Dr. Sauce.
Dr. Sauce. Perfect. But yeah, just to follow up on Brittany's comments, I want to thank all of our special guests today. Very much appreciate your level of openness to participating here. My ask from the audience is to let us know what you'd like to know more about. What do you want to hear next? This was a topic that we pulled from a recent CSC article that we were able to collaborate with these fine folks on. And we just love to know what else is interesting to you, much like the connectivity we've discussed between systems, processes. People is key. And one of the things I personally love most, and think everyone here shares this sentiment, is the connectivity of our industry. And it's certainly not something any of us want to lose. And we believe that building on that connectivity, having that level of knowledge share, and debates and discussions like this are really important for the future. So anything you want to know about, let us know. We're happy to work on additional collaborative efforts with frienders, with other people in the space, and maybe even facilitating some amongst laundry owners and operators. So we look forward to your feedback. And again, we appreciate everyone so much for participating today.